Sports fans anywhere can earn a nationally recognized degree from Penn State online. Whether you're starting or finishing your degree, study where and when it's convenient for you. Choose from more than 125 programs to become a top prospect in your field and advance your career. Learn more at worldcampusinfo.com. Penn State World Campus, a world of possibilities. Online. Visit worldcampusinfo.com today. That's worldcampusinfo.com.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Subscribe now by going to the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Back and better than ever, Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. There will be all of those laughs along the way, but we begin with this. It is now over, a week unlike any other in NFL history, maybe in the history of any sport, with patriotism and free speech and the President of the United States and our most popular pastime all coming together in ways that we had never seen before. And so before we go forward, or backwards, I should say, into last night's game, Mike, we go forward in a different sort of way. I think the question is, where does all of that go from here? And the answer to me is it's anybody's guess.
Yeah, that's absolutely the answer. I mean, we know news cycles. We'll move on to something else, unless the president keeps commenting and the players, keep taking it the way they're going to take it and want to say united against what he has to say, which I don't see happening, but you never know. So I think it goes to what we talked about yesterday. A team like the Jets, where Josh McCown said, I have no idea, and a team like the Raiders, where Donald Penn said it was a one-week thing. We go back to doing whatever you were doing before that. So I don't know. It depends on each team. I mean, the big story yesterday was it seemed all the talking and meanderings of the Pittsburgh Steelers on what was actually going on and why Alessandro, Villanueva was by himself. Al, as everybody calls him, was by himself, and he's apologizing. I mean, that thing turned into an absolute mess. But everything else, I just think it goes back to what teams want to do. There are some teams where they don't want the players kneeling at all. The Dallas Cowboys is one of them. The Carolina Panthers is another one. There's, I'm sure, other teams out there as well. So what will happen? Will those players stay in the locker room? Will anything change pre this past weekend, or will it just go back to what it was? Those that want to kneel will kneel. Those that want to put their hand on the shoulder of the guy that kneels will do that, and we'll go back to doing that again. Your guess is as good as mine.
Right. Will there be as much emphasis on it going forward as there was in week 2 of this season, or will it be what it was in week 3 of this season? Will this kind of energy surrounding it start to dissipate? I don't know the answer. My inclination would be to say, as you said, without any further event to further it, that it would start to dissipate, at least in the minds of the public. People move on to things pretty quickly. But if there's one thing that we've seen, it is that these things don't get dropped so easily by some of the people that are involved, particularly in this case by the president, who I think likes the attention that he got for this, and will perhaps continue to try to further it. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if in the next few days we see something that provokes a further response. The next NFL game, of course, is Thursday night. It'll be the Bears and the Packers in a renewal of the longest-standing rivalry in the history of the sport.
I'd be interested to know. In one way, I'm interested to know, and another way, I'm interested to move on. Quite honestly, if people, all the people that are taking sides on this, if anybody on the side of you should never kneel and disrespect the flag, no matter what your thought is, you're disrespecting the military and you shouldn't do it. That whole argument, if they were appeased is the wrong word, satisfied by what the Cowboys did. The Cowboys all linked arms, in case you didn't see it. They all took a knee before the national anthem. They did it on the field. They all got down on the knee before the flag came out and before the national anthem. And then before the national anthem was played, they stood up, went to the sideline, and every one of them stood as the flag came out and the national anthem played. And Jerry Jones, I'm sure we have the sound, we'll play it.
We're going to play it in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, so, and then we'll hear what Jerry Jones said. But so they knelt to show unity and then stood for the national anthem. So for those that are, will never understand why the millionaire players are doing what they're doing and they're disrespecting the flag, even though they say it's not about the military, it's about something else. I wonder if those people are appeased by this, where was it the best of both worlds? We showed unity, and then we stood for the national anthem. I don't know. again, this is each person's individual decision to decide what they thought of it.
Look, and I agree with you. It's an interesting question, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot of that response again. You're going to hear Jerry Jones and the explanation of how they arrived at what they decided to do last night in a moment. And then we are going to spend most of this morning within the lines of football games and basketball games and other normal things, because that's the milieu in which we live.
Yep.
At the end of the day, this is not what I didn't get into this, so I could sit here and talk about presidential politics. I know you didn't either, but this was a time when, as I said in the open, these things came together in an unprecedented fashion, and I don't know if they're going to come apart. I will say this. The world of football, which is one in which, you made your living, you transformed your life, right? I mean, from from where you began to where you are now, and in some ways, me too. You and I are what we are in large part because we were pretty good at talking about football from the day we started together. And while I never played it or anything like that, it is a sport I love and everything. I think they acquitted themselves in general as a league very, very well. I think that the way that they responded to what I think they perceived as an attack on the entirety of their foundation, I think they responded for the most part in appropriate, respectful but strong and powerful ways. I know that Goodell, who was just the source of endless mockery now, so you can't even mention his name without people rolling their eyes. But the one comment that I did see from him yesterday, I don't know where exactly it is he said it, but he said, "I'm proud of the league. I'm proud of the way we responded to this." And I think that is an accurate way to come. I think the National Football League as a whole, the overwhelming majority of the owners, the overwhelming majority of the players, I think they handled this extraordinarily difficult situation very well.
I do as well, and there were a lot more darts thrown at them, by people. Some people, again, it depends on what side of the fence you're on, and especially for those people that can't get talked to the other side no matter what. When we keep saying the whole key of this is to listen, there are those that don't want to, and certainly that's your prerogative, and you can just hate them for kneeling down and call them self-serving millionaires and whatever you're doing, or the other side can say, I understand what they're doing, and go from there. I mean, nothing's changed from yesterday to today, and I don't know what else will change. Now, are things changing in their communities? That's something I don't know. I know a lot of players do a lot of good for a lot of communities. Is this part of it? Will this continue? Will this continue to help? We'll see. We'll see in each community. I'm happy to move on, but I'm sure we will continue to talk about it. The tough part now, quite honestly, is we're talking politics. Now, unbelievably, we have to go to the legal system and talk about a judge. How about that for a segue?
That's well done.
Thank you.
Off the top.
All rise. Aaron Judge hit 2 yesterday, giving him 50 on the season. Mike, he is the home run hittingest rookie in the history of Major League Baseball.
Yeah, Mark McGwire hit 49 in 1987 as a rookie. So Aaron Judge, who went through just a horrific September where he was striking out all the time and wondered, the pitchers adjusted to him. And kudos to him, the 25-year-old rookie adjusting back and starting to knock the ball out of the park. He started the month with 37 home runs. So that's the second fewest for any member of the 50 home runs in a season club. In 1995, Albert Bell hit 50 home runs for the Indians after entering September with 33 home runs. The only other Yankee players to hit 50 home runs in a season.
This is quite a statistic.
Yes, it is. Babe Ruth, 4 times. Mickey Mantle, 2 times. And then Roger Maris and A-Rod as well. So, and then the other part of that, as the Yankees steam toward the postseason, we talked about Judge being the face of the first half, and then again that kind of dissipated. Stanton became the long ball guy. He's sitting at 57 right now. Is Judge back in the MVP race? Altuve, does he have that thing locked up? We can ask Hembo and some of our other baseball people think, but I think Judge has put himself back into that conversation. As I said, I do think it may be Altuve who's leading the league in hits, in average, second, I think, in stolen bases, first in WAR for non-pitchers. So, but what he's been able to do is been, for a young player, how the pitchers just had his number. Remember, he set the record for consecutive games with a strikeout, passing pitchers in that. So it was pretty embarrassing for him. And then to make the switch and make the adjustments and come back has been impressive.
You know what? I'm correct. I agree with everything you said. I'm also focused on, you think about the long and storied history of the New York Yankees and all of the power hitters that they've had.
Yeah.
Only Ruth, Mantle, Maris, and A-Rod ever hit 50 in a season. So, Hembo, I'm curious. Get me these if you can. What was the most home runs ever hit in a season by Lou Gehrig, by Joe DiMaggio and by Reggie Jackson. And anyway, is there another legendary Yankee slugger I'm forgetting in that group? Who else would you have thought, if you just closed your eyes and said, yeah, this guy would have hit 50 home runs in a season at some point? And obviously when Gehrig played, it was an extraordinarily rare occurrence, even when DiMaggio played to a degree. But I think a lot of people might be surprised to hear those are the only guys.
Yeah.
So we'll get those numbers for you as we go. All right, elsewhere, two teams can lock up playoff spots tonight, Mike, as we wind down to the end of the regular season.
The Cubs, they can clinch the NL Central if they win in St. Louis against the Cardinals, or if the Brewers lose against the Reds. The Cubs are eyeing their third straight postseason appearance. They could become the first reigning World Series champs to make the playoffs since the Cardinals in 2012. The last team to win its division the year after winning the World Series was the 2009 Phillies. The Twins, how about them? This is a story right here. They can clinch it tonight with a win against the Indians and an Angels loss to the White Sox. The Twins are looking for their first playoff appearance since 2010. They are also looking to become the first team in Major League Baseball history to go from a 100-plus losing season the year before to the playoffs. They lost 103 games last year. The most before that had been the Braves in 90, the Diamondbacks in 98, and the Diamondbacks in 2010 with 97 wins. They can go from 103 wins to the postseason. That's impressive.
People forget how bad the Braves were for so long before they became as good as they were, but it's a tremendous turnaround for the Twins. I have those home run numbers for you in a minute, too. Elsewhere, here's terrific news.
Yes, it is.
Todd Frazier, who hit the screaming line drive up the left field or the third base line that hit the little girl at Yankee Stadium the other day, said he has spoken to the family and that she's doing better.
Yeah, and that hopefully the father said that the hard stuff is behind them now. Hopefully she'll be getting out very soon from the hospital. Again, we don't know any full details of just what had happened to her, but Frazier said he has been texting back and forth. He said with the dad, the father has been very gracious with texting him and keeping him kind of in the loop with what's going on. He's hoping to meet with the family when she gets out of the hospital and such as well. So that's great news, without question.
It's an interesting thing because no one would blame him. Obviously, Todd Frazier didn't do anything wrong. He's up there doing his job, and it happens. But it's a strange thought to put yourself in his shoes and to know that this happened as a result of a ball that you had. Again, no one in their right mind is blaming him for doing anything wrong. I just wonder, as an athlete, you probably can't put yourself in that position. It would never happen in your sport. Like I remember when you hit Jeff Hostetler and he didn't get up, you didn't feel bad, but he's not a 4-year-old girl.
Also a key thing is, he's not a 4-year-old girl. And for those that don't know, I caught Jeff Hostetler on a pass rush and knocked him out, and he got carted off the field. This is back when the spinal injuries were we saw a lot of bad things going on in the NFL. But he was moving on the field. So if he wasn't, and got carted off and wasn't moving limbs at that point, yes, that would have been a tough feeling. But a kid in the stands, oh, my God. I mean, you're a human being. If you're Todd Frazier, I'd have done it. I think people would be doing exactly what he's doing and wanting to know how she is.
And finally, to the game last night where the Cowboys needed a win, and they got one on the road, 28-17 on Monday Night Football in Arizona. And all the details on this game are to come, Mike. But if you were watching last night, you saw a first quarter that you said to yourself, oh, my goodness, the Cowboys stink. They got blown out by Denver last week. They have no offense at all. And then, to their credit, they turned it around.
They absolutely did. But let me tell you what, you're right. The first half, 41 yards rushing, 25 yards passing. Here's your first half stats, and this is where, but you can go into the locker room and say, gang, all this happened, and look what's going on. You could look at it from the positive and the negative. The Cardinals had 152 yards to Dallas's 57. And the time of possession in the first half, 19 minutes, 34 seconds to 9 minutes, 41 seconds, dominated by the Cardinals. But the score was 7-7.
And that is Off the Top with Mike and Mike, as we'll get more deeply into that game as we go right here. Off the Top with us, we're brought to you by Upside. Now save big on travel. Get a big gift card with every trip you buy. You will love Upside.com. That's Upside.com. Let me very quickly close the loop, just because I brought it up, on all of the Yankees that hit 40 home runs in a season. So I had said I would have guessed that Gehrig, that DiMaggio, and that Reggie would have at some point in their careers hit 50 home runs. Reggie, to my surprise, the most he ever hit was 41 in a Yankee uniform in 1980. DiMaggio's biggest home run season, he hit 46 home runs in 1937. Gehrig had 49 home runs twice in 34 and 36. And then other Yankees, Tino Martinez, Jason Giambi, and Curtis Granderson all hit 40 or more home runs in a season in a Yankee uniform. So just to close the loop on that stat, again, with Aaron Judge getting to 50 yesterday. But the top story this morning, of course, Cowboys and Cardinals, and we'll begin it on the field, Mike. And as we were just discussing, a win the Cowboys desperately needed, and they did it behind their quarterback. Zeke Elliott didn't really get loose last night. No. His quarterback had a tremendous second half.
Yeah, he did. You know, there's still, if you're a Dallas Cowboy fan, you still may be scratching your head a little bit. Though this is what – now, it's not like teams weren't trying to do this last year, you know, when Zeke Elliott was running all over the place just to try and stop the run. But in the end, you know, the Cowboys did average under 4 yards per carry. They had under 100 yards. They had 99 yards rushing the ball. So, you know, with Zeke Elliott getting 80 of those on 22 carries. So they're certainly not that running game that we have been used to. But Dak Prescott really came through in the second half. First half, and the thing, too, is they didn't have the ball a lot in this game. So they had to make hay pretty quickly with their time of possession. They had to score points. They still only had the ball for 23 minutes in this game to 37 minutes for the Arizona Cardinals. So they had to get it done, and he did it a lot out of the pocket, which was impressive. Sometimes forced out, sometimes I think he feels more comfortable out there. A couple of read options as well on his score where he flipped over, did a great job of hiding the ball in the gut of Zeke Elliott, really sucking in the defense to give him a clear run until the goal line when he got flipped. But passing outside the pocket really was impressive. So, again, you got to make your bones in the pocket. But that's where you become that threat. When you can be out of the pocket, you can run, or you can be out of the pocket and you can pass. Something he did 37-yarder to Bryce Butler for a touchdown in the fourth quarter of that game. What a dart
that was.
It was a fantastic throw and a nice job by Butler going up and high-pointing that ball and keeping the ball away from the defender. But, you know, for the after the Denver game, and that's what you do when there's only 16 games. You do, oh, my God, they're going to be way better than we thought to, they're really going to come down this year. This is what we do week after week. And you're right, in the first quarter, even all the way to the first half, even though the score was tied, Cardinals blew an opportunity, touchdown pass called back, missed field goal to have the lead at halftime. But the Cowboys were not moving the ball. So you know what? Credit that defense. The defense had 6 sacks in this game. The defense did a nice job keeping the offense in this game till the offense kind of got untracked a little bit in the second half.
Yeah, to the point on Dak again, out of his 183 passing yards last night, 120 of them came from outside the pocket, so on the move. That's a career high for him, and he spread the wealth around last night. He had 13 completions to 7 different players. No one had more than 3. And watching the game, our Steve Young was impressed.
You know, this was the statement game after the Denver kind of debacle. All of them they never got punched in the mouth like that, even last year. So everyone's talking, well, what's wrong? Is it Dak? Can he handle it? And he just, to your point, came out like a veteran. Let's just not panic, because it started slow, just kind of kept at it. And I think his ability to move the pocket was the difference.
You know, and obviously what you do with the Cowboys, especially after last year, you talk about that offense and what they were able to do. But I really think you got to give the defense a lot of love in what they did. Carson Palmer in this game in the first half was 15 of 18 for 145 yards. Again, they only had 7 points, though, but he had a good completion percentage. The second half, he was 14 of 30 for 180 yards. And remember, he was sacked 6 times. 3 times by DeMarcus Lawrence in this one, who has 6.5 sacks, the most, by the way, by a Cowboy. The long history of the Cowboys, that's the most a player has had in the first 3 games at 6.5, and he leads the league. He's doing a great job, a guy that, you know, been in suspension and had some issues, as a number of the guys on the Cowboys had. But you got to give that defense a whole lot of credit. We'll talk about the offense and Dak and the O-line and the running game, but that defense I really think was the key for them last night.
Well, I'm going to let you make a choice on that then. We'll put, by the way, Steve Young at the mics, brought to you by Dave & Buster's. Watch the games and play the games at your football headquarters with Dave & Buster's. So you mentioned DeMarcus Lawrence. Again, 3 sacks. He's the second Cowboy player with 3 sacks on Monday Night Football, joining Ed Too Tall Jones in a game in 87 against the Giants. So we could put him in the zone. We are asked by our friends at AutoZone to put someone in the zone. I'm going to give you 3 options. One of them is Dak Prescott, who, again, spread it out last night. night in a game in which his team really needed it, came up with some big throws, and had 120 passing yards from outside the pocket. We could give it to DeMarcus Lawrence, who again had 3 sacks last night, or we could give it to the grizzled veteran in a losing cause. Larry Fitzgerald was so ridiculously good last night. 13 catches on 15 targets, 149 yards and a touchdown, and without question the catch of the season thus far.
Yeah.
The play where he dives in front of the defender and wrestles it away.
3rd and 18, and it's a 24-yard completion. Yeah,
is the catch of the year in the NFL to this point. So who would you like to put in the zone?
Because he's on the clearly on the last right around the last hole of his career. Let's go with Larry Fitzgerald on that one. No disrespect to DeMarcus.
We thought he was on the last hole. We thought he was putting on 17 4 years ago.
Listen, Lawrence has hopefully a lot in front of him as a player. Larry Fitzgerald, again, a guy that's going to walk into the Hall of Fame. 13 catches last night. 149 yards, moved into 8th place past Marvin Harrison for career receiving yards. So let's give him.
Let's give it to him. We'll put last night, what an unbelievable catch that was. If I'm distracted because I'm looking up at the highlight, I want to see the play again. It's Larry Fitzgerald who will put in the zone, brought to you by AutoZone. Drive the new Duralast GT brake pads, proven tough from the tracks to the streets and sold only at AutoZone. Get in the zone with AutoZone.
And I want to say about him, because with bad headlines, sometimes good headlines. Sometimes we forget about the individual and the person they are. I first met Larry, actually, with my boys. They played in, I believe it was the Insight Bowl, his senior year, his last year at Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. And I called that game with Mark Malone, and I brought Mike and Jake. I think it was in 2003. I think that was the year. And I brought Mike and Jake out there. And to the game, and because I was doing the game, got to talk to Larry and stuff, and it brought him to practice, and Larry met the boys at their practice. It was nice as could be. I mean, and from that moment on, we've had him on this show a ton, and I've done more than a few things with him, including the last few Super Bowls, but even through his years and my years doing this. And he's always been one of the classiest guys you would ever want to meet. He's one of those guys that you say is a better person than a football player for what he's done, how he's acted, how he's carried himself. And it's a guy, as I said, we all believe is going to walk into the Hall of Fame. When? Who knows? We know how they line up at times. But he's a Hall of Fame player. And you're right. We keep wondering if he's done. And look what he does. Just absolutely incredible of what he was able to do last night. Again, he was the offense basically for the Arizona Cardinals. So absolutely give that to him. I think he deserves it. And one of the great ones whose career is winding down.
Well said. And he was a great college player, too. It was the Insight Bowl in 2002, by the way.
2002,
just found
okay.
it. Mark Malone wasn't there, but that's neither here
nor
there.
wasn't Mark Malone?
No, it wasn't. No, they just showed all the broadcasters.
Who was it?
It was Dave Barnett, Mike Golic, Bill Curry, and
right.
Dave Ryan.
I did do an Insight Bowl with Malone. It was before that, though. I know I was out in Arizona doing a game with him. It just wasn't that one.
Listen,
so
you
can check it if you want. I absolutely did a game with Malone in Arizona.
By your standards, Mike, I think that was closer than we have come to expect. I think you were closer to getting that right. There it is. The following year, you did the Insight Bowl with Mark Malone.
Okay.
Play-by-play.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Take that off the screen. Who did sidelines in that game for you? It was you and Malone?
Oh, Malone, I don't know, but with Barnett, we had Michelle Tafoya was with us.
What I was just, I'm looking at the game that you did with Malone. It was Rob Stone.
Oh, it was?
Rob Stone did sidelines. You in the Insight Bowl.
Yeah, we were. I was in Arizona, so I was happy.
The best of Mike and Mike.
All right, well, we were having so much fun, and the president has just tweeted. It's 6:28 was when he tweeted, so that's 3 minutes ago. He tweeted, ratings for NFL football are way down except before game starts when people tune in to see whether or not our country will be disrespected. Exclamation point.
Well,
so there's that.
Yeah.
Do you have a comment?
No,
I mean, I've run out of things to say at this point.
From a factual standpoint, the ratings are down. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. Ratings are down in the NFL, and they're up in college football. So, people can look at that. You can usually make numbers work however you want them to work. You can say, are the ratings down for some of the horrible things that have been going on, with Mother Nature the last couple of weeks? Mm-hmm. Is that part of it? Because last year we talked about the election year. Or, are they down? Are people getting turned off by what they see? Which, again, fans have always had the power. You don't want to watch, you don't want to go, you don't have to.
Yeah.
And if it's reflecting in the ratings and we continue to see that going down, then how will the NFL, will they adjust somehow, some way? Because it would be one thing if you'd said every sport was down, but the same sport just in college going on basically the exact same time is up. So, I mean, you can say people are, for whatever reason, turning off NFL games.
You could wonder aloud whether that's something Roger Goodell should be worried about and the NFL owner should be worried about. You could also wonder aloud if it's 6:26 in the morning, the President of the United States might have other things that he could be worried about. Yeah. When Puerto Rico is underwater and we're at there's a threat of nuclear war with North Korea.
Side as well.
You could ask that question, I suppose, if you wanted to. But that's not what we're here to ask. That said, he tweeted it, so we read it.
Yep.
Okay. Can I segue from that to Too Far Tuesday?
Please.
My point is.
Yeah. Was that Too Far Tuesday?
Is that if that isn't the most ironic segue of all time? We have our hashtag Too Far Tuesday that we do every Tuesday here on Mike and Mike. So we'd like to hear what you saw this weekend and you thought went too far. That's actually not what the bit is. The bit is overreacting. So here we are on a Tuesday. Week 3 of the NFL season is now behind us, and you can let us know what it is you saw that you've decided for sure you know. Like, for example, Mike, the Cowboys running game isn't what it was a year ago, and they will not live on that this year. That might be a hashtag Too Far Tuesday. And here's one of the ways that is manifesting itself. The Cowboys last year ranked second in the NFL in time of possession, which is a huge statistic, as everybody knows, rushing attempts and everything else, and especially with a young quarterback, which they had as a rookie last year, and Dak is still a young quarterback to this point. Do you know where they rank right now in time of possession?
I'm going to say near the bottom.
They rank 28th out of 32 teams. Now, it's only a 3-week sample, and that can turn around, but it just doesn't look the same, and Zeke doesn't look the same. So a good hashtag Too Far Tuesday might be the Cowboy running game isn't going to carry them the way it did a year ago.
And you wonder what the reason is. We talk about their offensive line being either the best or one of the best, 3 Pro Bowlers. With Frederick, with Zach Martin, and Smith from the tackle to the center to the right guard. You had Lel Collins at left guard. He moved out to right tackle when Doug Free retired. So you have Chaz Green now at the left guard. So is it on the O-line? But let me tell you, against Denver just flat out whooped them. You can sit there and say they had more in the box. You can do all you want. Denver beat them at the line. And the people that know that are that offensive line. They're the most realist group out there when they're watching tape, believe me, of what went on when you get beat and when you don't get beat. So it's a combination. In that game, certainly they got beat, and teams are loading up the box. But they did it some last year when Zeke was running like crazy and that O-line was blocking well, and we were highlighting them every single week, and they were forcing you to pass the ball. To the Bryce Butlers, the Des Bryants, the Jason Wittens of the world. They just didn't have a lot of time to do it last night. Credit the Cardinals for controlling the ball, but also credit, that's why I said, the Cowboys defense for keeping that score down and keeping the Cowboys in it. So where it goes, I don't know. How much is it, Zeke as well? There are those that are saying he looks overweight. I have no idea. I'm not there. I didn't step on the scale. What he does he look the same? Our team's just playing them differently. Our team's just playing them better. It could be a lot of different factors in this, but the bottom line is the results. Against Denver, they flat out got punched in the mouth. They ran better last night, but the Denver was okay.
Yeah.
This was a line that moves people, and they didn't in that game. So it was a little bit of an eye-opening moment.
I also, and you could probably get into this better than I can, but I heard some people saying, in fact, we have a soundbite about this, guys. I'll tell you which one it is in a minute. I was reading through some of our soundbites a little while ago. I think it was from Darren Woodson when he's talking. Here it is. The Woody on the Cowboys offense, the 27-second soundbite. Get me that one, guys, and tell me in my ear when it's ready, because he's talking about Zeke and what it is specifically that Zeke does so well and why it isn't working right now. Go ahead and play that one for me, guys. This is Darren Woodson specifically on Zeke Elliott and the Cowboys running game.
If you think about the run game, Ezekiel Elliott is a one-cut running back. He sees a hole, he goes. He's not a guy that creates. So I think with that offensive line trying to figure their way out, it's going to take him some time to be the most dominant running back that he can be. Now, he broke off the one long run that we seen tonight, but you didn't see a whole lot of that tonight, maybe until a little bit late. He broke off a couple of good runs, but it's going to take some time for this offense to be what they're capable of being.
That's obviously Charles Woodson, not that. It just says Woodson on the piece of paper that I have, so it's my fault. I assumed incorrectly that it was Darren Woodson because of his proximity to the Cowboys. But either way, the point remains that Zeke is a one-cut running back.
Yeah.
Is that something you can explain better than I, what that means from a defense standpoint?
Basically, you get the ball, he starts, he can stretch. Sometimes you're going to see a guard like Zach Martin pulls a decent amount, whether he pulls left across the center or he pulls right for a wide play. You get these guys to pull and stretch, and then Zeke is just going to be patient. One of those guys get on their man, which they do so well. They're so well at locking on their guy. Zeke makes his move. That's what happens. Against Denver, the guys up front were getting beat more. They were getting handled more, so Zeke didn't have that place to go. And Zeke doesn't have the jitterbug moves to kind of, go left, go right, go east and west a lot.
That's the point. To be clear on what the one-cut running back means, it means he's got that burst. When he sees that hole, he hits it, and boom.
Patient.
But he's not making guys miss the way some other backs do.
He doesn't make guys miss, so when the O-line gets beat, he's not avoiding a lot of that. So he's that patient guy. You let that line do its thing, and you find that crease, that crack, and you hit it. That's his game. So, could be a little of him. Certainly some of the O-line, especially against Denver. Last night, again, was a little better, but still not what we're used to seeing out of them.
Home isn't just a place. It's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you, whether you're at home, your business, or online. We help keep you safe with security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT. Home. Safe home.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million, what color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo!
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
We are a sports talk show, and when the President of the United States is tweeting about the National Football League, that rises to the level of sports news. No matter how ridiculously tired of talking about it we may be, and we can tell you are, we would not be doing our job if we did not tell you the President has tweeted again. So we read you his first tweet, which was 18 minutes ago. There's another one now from 11 minutes ago. So first, the President tweeted, ratings for NFL football are way down except before game starts when people tune in to see whether or not our country will be disrespected. I read you that one.
Right.
And then while we were in a break, he tweeted again, the booing at the NFL football game last night when the entire Dallas team dropped to its knees was loudest I have ever heard. Great anger. That's the tweet.
That's the tweet. And again, for those that didn't watch it, what the Cowboys did, all the teams, as we know, was trying to show unity throughout the weekend. They locked arms and they knelt down on the field before the flag came out and before the national anthem. That was their show of unity, of being together. And then when the flag came out and the national anthem was played, they were on the sidelines and all of them were standing. But when they knelt, they did get booed. I think people thought maybe they were going to kneel for the anthem. I don't know. I have no idea. But they did boo when they knelt, but then they stood up. And on the other side, the Cardinals all locked arms and while standing for the national anthem.
The one that I just saw on our screen, was that from President Trump also? Oh, he deleted it. Okay. So he also posted a tweet about how the Cowboys then stood up, but then he seems, and I saw that pop up on television, on our television, but I'm sitting here on his Twitter feed and it isn't there, which was what confused me. So he did tweet, but while Dallas dropped to its knees as a team, they all stood up for our national anthem. Big progress being made. We love our country. And well, he deleted that.
Yeah.
And now it's back, I'm being told. Okay, hold on.
Fun with Twitter.
But yes, here it is. It's back again, 32 seconds ago.
The one thing I will say, if I'm gathering from Jerry Jones, haven't the Cowboys always stood? Did they have anybody that ever knelt?
I believe they had not.
They had not, so nothing was new there. They, as far as, saying big progress was made, the Cowboys did exactly what they always do to the national anthem. They're a team where all the players have stood for the national anthem. So, there you go.
Anyway, that's...
Why don't we hear Jerry Jones?
Let's hear Jerry Jones. It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Here's Jerry Jones with an explanation. Again, Mike just explained to you what they did. They came out, they all took a knee together, then they stood up for the flag. And this was Jerry Jones' explanation.
I made my mind up on this issue that I wasn't going to comment other than I'm very proud of the fact that the Dallas Cowboys and our players have always stood for the flag and stood to the flag in the recognition of the flag, always. What is important is to figure out that to do that and to show the kind of respect and the perception of respect. How could they basically, in front of a national audience, show unity and a statement for equality? And they wanted to do that. It evolved throughout the organization, particularly over the last 2 days, and it was executed.
So that was what they did. Again, they've never they've always stood for the national anthem, so they did exactly what they always have done. While some of these players on other teams have knelt or sat down, it was just before that they all knelt to show unity of what all the teams have done and players have done in regards to the president's tweets last week. So onward it goes. As you said, I said, well, we kind of move on from this and what happens next, and we said, will we hear from the president at all? And it didn't take long.
It's hilarious. And that's Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. For those of you who may have just joined us in the last few minutes, I opened the show this morning. In fact, I'll read it to you because I write these down every single day. I opened the show this morning by saying that the conclusion of my open was the question now, I guess, is where does it go from here? And Mike, to me, the answer is it's anybody's guess. And we speculated for a minute or two that things might sort of calm down and go back a little bit to the way they were before this weekend with some players protesting and most players not doing so, and the world sort of moving on from this particular part of this controversy. And we left out the caveat, unless something happens that stirs it up again. And the most obvious thing would be if the president tweeted about this again, and it only took him 20 minutes, and we've got 3 tweets and still counting this morning. I'm afraid to open my screen. I'm afraid to click over, or maybe I should be afraid to not click over, because you may miss every 30 seconds another tweet about the National Football League from the president of the United States. Go ahead.
You know what I think, take away the fact that they're NFL players and the president. What you have back and forth, in all honesty, from the human being side, is you have a bunch of A-type personalities, don't you? You have guys who are playing who got called out and are saying, wait a minute, only we can call each other out, not somebody on the outside can call us out. So they fired back at an A personality in the president. There's no doubt he has an A personality, right? That he says, you're going to call me out? Well, I'm going to keep hammering away at you. I mean, so this is kind of forgetting the positions, and all are in pretty powerful positions, I would say. Donald Trump in the most powerful, obviously, of position. But these are A personality people that kind of won't let it go back and forth on one another. That's what it seems. That's what it seems like to me. If you took away titles and you just knew people that had A personalities, and one fired off something, the other said, "Oh, not today," and fired something back. Oh, you're going to fire back? Well, I'm going to fire back at you. That's where it seems we are right now.
Yes,
you just have NFL players, NFL League, and President of the United States attached to it, which really kind of makes you go, wow, is this really going on right now?
It does. It makes you, that's exactly what it makes you do. I said it yesterday. It feels even more true today. We are living in the middle of a reality show that has actual consequences. Like, this stuff matters. We sit here and we read these tweets, and there comes a point where you almost want to laugh because it all seems so ludicrous, but this stuff actually matters. This stuff affects people. All right, we're just going to have to move on.
Hopefully these little tweets won't back and forth, but who knows? I mean, well, we'll see.
Yeah. No, it's bringing people together. It's a wonderful way of unifying our nation, bringing people together, finding people who have a fundamental disagreement, and finding a way to bring them together rather than driving a stake right between them to make sure that everyone gets on their own side.
the best of Mike and Mike.
Trey Wingo in studio with us here. All right, we haven't gotten to this all morning long, so let's hear it. This is Alejandro Villanueva, who most people by now are well aware is an offensive lineman for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who is an Army Ranger, served multiple
3 tours of duty
overseas, and now has the number 1 selling jersey in the National Football League.
Right.
After it appeared he was the only member of the Pittsburgh Steelers who came out for the anthem Sunday in Chicago. He was quite upset with the way it was portrayed and the way it turned out. Here was his explanation.
I see that picture of me standing by myself. I feel embarrassed to a degree because, again, like I said, unintentionally I left my teammates behind. It wasn't me stepping forward. I never planned to boycott the plan that the Steelers came up with. I just thought that there was to be some middle ground where I could stay in the tunnel, nobody would see me, and then afterwards I wouldn't talk to the media like I do all the time. And at the end of the day, the reason, whether I wanted it or not, whether it was my intended plan or not, the reason that I went out there by myself is the reason that is causing all this distress and is making the organization look bad, my coach look bad, and my teammates look bad. And for anybody who thinks that Coach Tomlin is not as patriotic as you can get in America, or any one of my teammates or the owner, I take offense to that.
That was just an incredibly weird situation. Ben Roethlisberger posting that he's sorry that they did that, and he wanted to be out on the field, and they're going to be out on the field. To Alejandro thought the guys were behind him. He just wanted to see the flag, and he took everything on himself. Listen, I've got to meet that guy and did a couple things at the Super Bowl with him last year. He and his wife, they could be the nicest people I think I've ever met for this monster guy that he is. And I said yesterday, I don't know what they worked out, Trey, but my thing would have been, if we're going to work it now, it turns out that they're making this explanation for something. But if there was an initial plan, it would have been, this is what we're all doing, Alejandro. You do what you feel you need to do.
Right.
that would have been my thing. If you do 3 tours, you feel you need to go out there, you go out there, and then we're all going to, do what we need to do. But he wouldn't have done that.
No.
He would not have been that guy to be separate from his team. That's why he's profusely apologizing for seemingly being separate from the team.
Well, and the interesting thing is, if you listen to Mike Tomlin's comments before the game, he said, look, we don't want to be involved in this political football, for lack of a better. We want to stay out of it. And that was their decision. For example, the Seahawks made a statement before the game. They were absolutely doing this as part of the protest. And so that's why they did it. Mike Tomlin's initial thought after a Saturday meeting with the team was, look, let's just stay out of it. Let's just do our thing here in the locker room, and then we'll come out. That way, we're not going to be a part of the story. And unfortunately, it became the exact opposite, and it became one of the biggest parts of the entire season.
Well, the sense you get is that maybe it was creating some kind of divisiveness within their own locker room. There were guys that wanted to do this and guys that wanted to do that, and basically Tomlin said, we're all going to do the same thing, so I'm going to make the decision that we don't have to go out there in the first place. Trey, where does this go from here? We have the president, as I've mentioned multiple times, tweeting 3 times on this topic in a 9-minute stretch of the 6 o'clock hour Eastern time this morning. So he's not letting it go.
No.
Do you expect the players and the teams to some degree to let it go this week? Where does this now go from here?
Well, I think that's going to be up to what happens going forward with this. Look, you're right. The president is not going to let this go, and he thinks he's getting support from his base because of this. I think you talked to I heard some of the Bills players after the game in Denver, or against Denver, that they won. Some of the guys said, look, I wanted to show my solidarity for those people that were protesting by protesting this time around. I'm not going to do that going forward. So I think those that were protesting before this will probably continue, but I don't think we'll see the same mass number of players doing it. It was some 200, I think, that was before the Monday night game when the entire Cowboys team and Jerry Jones, by the way, took the knee. So I think we'll see it dialed back simply because I think a lot of people wanted to say, don't tell us what we can and can't do.
Well, I think that's exactly what it was, and now I hope, with the president tweeting again this morning, more of his stuff against about the NFL and getting booed and getting booed with great anger and taking some joy in that. My thought was I would hope the coaches tell the players, they're not going to tell them don't say this or say that, but highly suggest to them, let's move past this. Let's not, as I said, got a lot of A personalities, from the president to professional football players, professional athletes, who want to answer it. Somebody called us out, well, we're firing back. Oh, you're firing back? Well, I'm going to call you out even more.
Right.
At some point, somebody's got to say, let's move on from this, and I'm hoping the coaches get the players to be able to not, as when the media jumps in there today, you know they're going to be looking for that quote. What do you think of what the president tweeted? I hope they just say, you know what, we're moving on to the next game. I hope they pull a Bill Belichick on to Cincinnati,
right,
and say, let's go.
And the other thing, too, is since we played the sound from Villanueva there, there was a great article, a couple of articles in Pittsburgh, where he went into great detail about his thoughts about why he stood for the flag and why he wasn't upset with his teammates as a veteran who chose to protest. And if you really want to read it, I mean, it gives you some great insight into what he was thinking and what his teammates were thinking. And I would encourage everybody just to read some of those things that people are saying, so we're not on this, you're this and you're that. And, let's try and diffuse the great anger, because the great anger isn't helping anybody.
And one of the things a lot of people are reporting to is that Villanueva's jersey all of a sudden is the top seller, and everybody is saying, see. Let's remember when Kaepernick did what he did last year, his jersey sales skyrocketed. Yep. And, by the way, this August 1st, not too long ago, right? He was number 39 in the league. He was the only player in the top 50 for merchandise sales not on a roster.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it worked that way as well as far as jersey sales of those who supported what he did. So here we are, basically in that same
Just read what Alejandro Villanueva, he was very insightful.
The reality of the situation is when you say the great anger isn't helping anybody, I'm not 100% sure that's true. And that may be one of the problems that we have here. There may be some people who are benefiting from the fact that this is dividing people and making people angry and making people passionate on either side of this. And that might be one of the problems that we have here as well. Not everyone has the same idea that you have, that I have, that Mike has.
No question.
About the best way to try and put this behind us, because it might be in their best interest not to put it behind them. We're back and better than ever. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, whatever poet it is you choose to study at home.
I was going to say, I've seen all his films. That's not the right person.
Who were you thinking
I'm
of?
Joking.
Were you thinking of Ezekiel Elliott?
No, I'm just
I'm not sure which
around.
Elliott.
T.S. Eliot.
You had in mind there. Our buddy Ryen Russillo is back with us. It's always a delight to see him. You hear him coast to coast every weekday afternoon here on ESPN Radio. How are you, Ryen?
I'm good, guys. It's good to see you.
We've got a bunch of stuff for you today.
Yeah, we do.
And I want to start with the hoops. There's obviously a bunch of football that we're in the midst of now, but people, I think, associate you first and foremost on this show with the basketball. And let's start with Dwayne Wade. We had Woj on earlier this morning saying that after tomorrow, these decisions can start to get made. I think the words he used were what did he say, a prohibitive favorite or something like that. Front runner in the process right now in his mind are the Cleveland Cavaliers for D. Wade. What are you hearing?
Yeah, talking to teams last night, one call this morning before I came in, I would be shocked if Wade's not on the Cavs. I think it makes all the sense in the world. They actually need him. But the most important thing for Dwayne Wade is I think the team that brings him in has to know what they're signing up for. And that is that you're going to have to, not that he can't play a full season, but it's better for Wade to kind of go at his own pace. And he did that in Miami. And when he got to Chicago, it was like, okay, what did we sign up for here? With Cleveland, I think Cleveland as a whole will kind of coast in the regular season. I don't think they're going to care about seeding at all. They're not going to get Isaiah back probably towards the end of the calendar year, maybe at the turn of the year. And with Wade, he can plug right in and start now if he wants to. But because of his relationship with LeBron and their runs together in Miami, when Wade decides, I don't want to play 82, I'll play 60, it's a perfect fit. And I think everybody there would be on the same page where, look, he would rest in San Antonio. OKC has room for him with their two-guard depth. But I just think it's a little different. His relationship with LeBron, the way these guys, you get a little bit older too. I think guys go, you know what? I just want to be around guys that I like, that are my friends, and they're close enough that I think they end up pulling this off.
So that seems to be the place he's going to be. Let's put him there. What does that do for them against, here we go, all the way to the finals against Golden State?
Yeah, all of these moves it really feels like an arms race where I'm not knocking any of the GMs, but it's just if you're the Thunder, you go, okay, we got Paul George. Everybody would do that deal in a second. And then you go, okay, is Melo a perfect fit? He doesn't really want to be a power forward. George doesn't want to be a power forward. Yeah. They have the two guys from the Eastern Conference that would probably be better suited in today's game playing the four that both still want to be threes. And yet you just go, who cares? I have to find a way to keep up with Golden State's offense. And to suggest that any of these moves add up to some piece where I go, okay, I could see one of these teams getting the Warriors in 7 games, that's completely diminishing how amazing the Warriors are and how dominant they are. So as I've said numerous times on the show before, there just aren't any real tangible basketball rosters that can be put together that I think is beating a healthy Warriors. So yes, Cleveland can still win the East. They could win it without Wade. I can't wait to see what the Celtics look like here. But none of this stuff ever makes me go, oh, wait a minute. There's some matchup stuff there now where I think they could get the Warriors.
What I was trying to find is a place that the Warriors may have to sweat in the West. It's one thing to say, yeah, they'll get to the East and we'll see what Cleveland can do. We understand Cleveland has been trying to use, I like the term arms race, because that is what it feels like. I was sort of thinking to myself, if you do put him on Oklahoma City and you just keep all those guys healthy, and that's a big if, not only with Wade, I think, but with Carmelo also. But if you have those guys healthy at the end, you have some other pieces. You have a little rim protection there. You got some guys who can run around on the wing a little bit. Do they make it interesting with Golden State, do you think?
Well, you'd have the Paul George piece that would be able to go at Durant, which is why Cleveland wanted him so bad. Not just because he's really good, but you go, this is just going to save LeBron. I think you'll see with Jay Crowder this year that Jay Crowder is going to be playing those really great, skilled perimeter guys that are bigger. And if Cleveland gets to the finals against the Warriors again, you could see Jay Crowder in a big Durant moment there, but still Durant has so much height on him that you'd expect LeBron to get him a few times. So, as I look at who the Thunder are defensively, George is the guy. I don't think Wade comes in today and brings you anything. And obviously that would be a significant drop-off from where Andre Robertson is. I mean, he is an outstanding defender. He's so good defensively, he's actually still out on the court, because offensively it's not really a great side of the court for him. So when I look at the West, the Rockets are this team in the beginning of that Spurs series, and you kind of felt this as you'd watch them. You go, I got to take them a little bit more seriously. Their defense was passable, and then you add Chris Paul, so then you have to start doing the math on what do Harden and Paul both look like. In a series, when it could go right with their style of play, they're really, really scary. But then it completely falls apart against San Antonio. Harden has a rep-damaging type of game to close out that Spurs series. Like, I'm talking, he needs to have a really deep run to kind of redeem himself. Not that he's not a star, not that he's not awesome, but that was an awful way to go out. So do they have enough pieces, or can they hit shots enough in 4 games out of 7 to even threaten the Warriors? Like, that still feels like the thing, because it's San Antonio, which likely isn't going to be as great as Kawhi is. To say that they're going to be better this year than they were last year seems like a reach, even though I love DeJounte Murray. And then the rest of it's kind of open. I mean, the top 4, it's OKC, it's Houston, it's San Antonio. Like, I have a hard time even locking in. Minnesota, you would think, has to be that 5th team, but Minnesota was so bad defensively. Karl Anthony Towns arguably is the worst defensive player at his position, and the same could be said for Andrew Wiggins. Like, Wiggins is not even just bad at his position. He's overall one of the worst defensive players, which doesn't make any sense because of his skills. And coming out of Kansas, you thought, okay, at the very least, he'll be really competitive defensively. You add Butler, who's great on defense. You add Taj, who's really good as well. They have to be, there's no way they can be as bad as they were defensively. But to plug them in and start talking about the Warriors, we're talking about one of the great rosters we've ever seen in the history of the league. It's just hard for me to go, you know what? These guys can get them.
As far as all the moves that were made, and all the moves, and we spouted off all the moves, it was one of our fill-in-the-blank questions this morning. Which move to you will be the most impactful to their team?
It's really 2. The fact that Danny Ainge, in less than 2 seasons, a calendar year, adds Horford in free agency and then is able to add Gordon Hayward, and then you trade for Kyrie, I'll never understand it. Maybe it's because it was Ainge and people my age or older didn't like him as a player. Maybe it's an anti-Celtics thing. But what Ainge did with that roster in that amount of time is impossible. Now, granted, Pat Riley pulled the all-time great free agent summer when he grabbed Bosh and got Wade to work it out, and then obviously LeBron. But that's incredible, and that was always Ainge's thing. When I was up in Boston, he was really great to me in explaining that we have Paul Pierce. Okay, that's before they'd won the title in 2008. And everybody wants me to trade Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce is still in his prime. As soon as you trade a guy like Paul Pierce, you want somebody like Paul Pierce. So why do I want to trade Pierce and lose the trade? I want Pierce to be in place so I can add to him. So, yeah, Horford's completely overpaid, but that's free agency, and he's somebody that other players in the league like, and you go, you know what, maybe I can go there now. So now you have Gordon Hayward, now you have Horford, and Kyrie starts thinking, now I want to go there. So that is the thing that Ainge did and the Celtics did that I think is really important to remember when teams have one really great player, but they know they're not good yet. You're probably better off keeping him because you're going to lose that trade. And the fact that they've pulled this off and could very well win the East, at least on paper, in the standings. I don't know how it's going to play. It's just so tough going up against LeBron. That is an incredible. Like, I don't want to hear it anymore from the anti-Ainge people because you're just wrong.
Mike and Mike, Ryen Russillo in with our studio here talking basketball. I'm looking at Sam Presti, and I'm thinking this is a guy who's like he's like on the ship that's sinking, and he's hanging on for dear life. And he has managed over the course of the last 2 months to turn Victor Oladipo, Doug McDermott, Enes Kanter, a second-round pick, and Arvydas Sabonis' son into, and I keep saying that, I apologize, but I can't remember his first name.
Right.
What is it?
Domas is what it is.
Okay.
Right.
Into Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. That's about as good as it gets by NBA standards, and made them, at minimum, an extremely relevant, exciting, and interesting team, and maybe at maximum a legitimate contender. But here's my question.
Sure.
What are they a year from now? We had Woj talking about how if you somehow tried to keep this thing together, their payroll plus luxury tax would be $300 million next year. That's obviously not happening. Carmelo is going to opt in, according to Woj, and it makes sense because he has $28 million sitting there, and no one's giving him that, I don't think, as a free agent. Russell Westbrook, let's see what his future is. Paul George, we all know he can do what he wants. So what's your best guess right now on how they play that in Oklahoma City?
It all depends on Russ, right? And how scary is this? Think about what these NBA players are doing now. They're staring at $200 million guaranteed money, and they're like, I'm good. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, think about that. You have that contract's waiting for you. You're like, I'm good. We'll see what happens. Now, maybe he signs the extension. He says he loves it there, but players have said that before. So if Russ stays, then it completely changes the conversation. I'm not even remotely convinced that Paul George is staying there past this year. Nobody believes that around the league, and I don't know if he would stay if Russ stayed. The Kanter thing was smart because he was paid a ton of money, and honestly, you had to bench Kanter against certain series in the playoffs. You just couldn't even have him out there, so it wasn't going to make any sense there. But yeah, if Russ stays, then this is a completely different conversation. You go, okay, piece here, piece there. You're adding these things. Like, you're adding the guys like Dwayne Wade. I mean, next offseason is going to be insane. They wouldn't have the flexibility to add any of those pieces, but Presti's pulled some of this stuff off before, so I guess I'm not giving you a definitive answer here, Greeny.
My question, though, is because you are sort of Paul George isn't going to stay there beyond this year, right?
I don't
George
think
going
so.
To the Lakers.
I don't think if Russ is gone, then he's gone. It's not like George goes, okay, now it's my team.
So you think Paul George stays in OKC if Russ stays in OKC?
Well, it's a much better chance, but everybody's going to say the right things now. I felt so bad for Thunder fans greeting Paul George and going, yeah, finally somebody that likes it here. And you're like, he's only going.
Come on.
He's opt out. And post Durant.
Carmelo opts in for one more year. So do they trade him?
The Melo thing will be weird.
He's got the no trade that remains intact.
Right. That number's huge. And the only time you see a guy opt out of that is somebody goes, hey, let's take less of a hit on the annual so we save money year to year on this because you're not going to opt out and get the same kind of money if you're a free agent. I mean, that stuff has happened. Like Dwayne Wade opted out of his Heat deal, which I still to this day can't believe that he did. But that group still isn't good enough. I mean, that's actually what I respect, though, about some of these guys, okay? Because we have so many fan bases that have said, well, what's the point of doing this? You're not going to beat the Warriors.
Right.
Well, then if that's what we're doing, we can tell the other 29 GMs to just pack it up.
Right.
Like, these guys are competitive. So I respect Presti. I respect Daryl Morey. I respect that these guys go, okay, yes, on paper, I know I'm not the number one seed in the West. But what are we doing here? What's the job? The job is to try to get better. The job is to try to compete. And who knows? Maybe Golden State has that one significant injury. They thought they lost Durant at one point last year they thought when he got hurt against the Wizards that he was done. Durant thought he was done. Then what happens? Steph, basically, you can make an argument 2 years ago that him getting hurt against Houston, cost him a third ring. So I applaud these GMs for doing things. Nobody should be – every move should not be, does this move make us better than the Warriors? And I think –
unfortunately, it just kind of is, though.
Yeah,
right? I mean,
right.
it just kind of is.
But
the
that's
only
what I
way to
love
look
about
at
the
it.
Celtics. They're making a move to be good now and in the future.
That's impossible what
Yeah.
they've done to add to it even more because, if Tatum turns out to be as good as I think he can be, that's a fourth guy with this team. And, obviously moving the pick was the big part about Kyrie. They have Kyrie under contract for a couple years. And so Ainge sets himself up, and they can, as you said, Golic, they can reinvent this thing again on the fly in a couple years and strike back at it. And then who knows where LeBron even is? who knows how good the rest of the East is. So I actually like the fact that the Celtics looked at this and said, right now, we're that much better than we were. And granted, like last year was a disaster in the Eastern Conference Finals, but they put themselves in a position to be competitive for a long time. When other teams are just totally bailing on wanting to be competitive because of who Golden State is.
Russillo's with us here with the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contract.
All right, let's do a little straight talk on the NFL. We all saw what happened over the weekend with the president's tweets, how the players answered, how the league answered. So last night was the last night of this particular weekend, and you saw what the Cowboys did. If anybody didn't, what they did is they linked arms, went out on the field, and knelt down before the national anthem. By the time the flag came out and the national anthem was sung by Jordan Sparks, I believe, who I think sings 1,000 of those a year.
Yes.
They all
stood.
Yes. They all stood for the actual national anthem and when the flag was out. So Greeny asked it right this morning, right off the bat. I'll ask you, what happens next? Where do we go now?
Yeah, I don't know. It's
knowing full well that we've read the president has tweeted probably a handful of times already about the booing that went on last night and more about the ratings being down. So
3 times in a 9-minute stretch in the 6 o'clock hour this morning.
Do you know that I hadn't really ever followed it day to day, the president's Twitter feed, and I went on it yesterday to prep up for my show, and I thought I was on a parody account. And I'm not trying to be funny about it. I just went, what? And then he loves the Penguins, so that's huge.
He just did it again. By the way,
He could be watching you right now.
He tweeted again. 8 minutes ago, the president, and by the way, he did tweet in between the football tweets. He threw in one about Luther Strange, which is the candidate that he likes in Alabama, another one about an interview that he watched on Fox and Friends, a third one on what's going on in Puerto Rico. And then 8 minutes ago, he tweeted, the NFL has all sorts of rules and regulations. The only way out for them is to set a rule that you can't kneel during our national anthem.
Now, let me take this one seriously, because isn't that a rule in the NBA?
It is.
That is a rule.
Correct.
So, I mean,
it is a rule.
You literally could. The NBA set that rule, so they're never going to have the issue of that, correct?
This came up last year. It dates back to Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf a generation ago. It is a rule in the NBA. The U.S. women's soccer, I believe, also made it a rule this year after Megan Rapinoe knelt last year.
Right.
It is obviously not a rule in the NFL, as we have seen.
And now you wonder, we already know about the divide, forgetting what's going on here, the divide between the NFL and the players. If the NFL were to now say, hey, you can't do that anymore for the players that have been doing it, that would be a very interesting way to go. But like I said, the NBA they have done it.
Look, I'm reading this again. I hate to keep cutting off, but look at the wording of this.
Is he DMing you?
The NFL has all sorts of rules and regulations. The only way out for them is to set a rule that you can't kneel during our national anthem. What he's saying there, if we're going to take it literally, is I'm not letting this go until that's a rule. I mean, that sounds like what he's saying. He's basically saying, I'm not. So, Mike, I asked you this morning, when does this end? How does it go away? Does the president let it go? He's not. I believe that is a definitive message. Until this is a rule in the National Football League, I'm not letting it go.
Well, this is directly now going to go. Everybody's going to want to hear from Roger Goodell or the owners.
And every owner
say,
again.
Are you going to make this a rule? Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what's going to happen now.
All right, Ryan, go ahead. Sorry.
No, don't be at all. I think well, it's not funny. The irony of this is Goodell, who probably had as low an approval rating as anybody would talk about day-to-day in sports, now can somehow this can actually help Goodell.
Right.
Because Goodell come out and say we're not going to have a rule, because if they have a rule, then it'll be perceived as you're trying to control us.
Right.
You are anti our voice. This is a First Amendment issue, which then can be debated because it's a First Amendment in the country, or is a First Amendment at your place of employment. Like, we can't just say whatever we want to say and then scream First Amendment. So I felt like last night it kind of got to peak anthem protest / unity. Like, that felt like once Jerry Jones is down there and then everybody's screen grabbing it. And I don't like to go to memes for all of my stats on social activism, but it's weird how there were complaints that nobody was standing with the players, and we needed white players to put their arms around black players, and we needed to show unity. And then Jerry Jones kind of does the hover knee, where it's knee and then they're up before the anthem. It's like that hover hand of a picture.
Right.
that got made fun of, and then that wasn't real. And I just kind of like at home, and I give up. I'm reading all of it on social media and be like, okay, look, he went out there, he took a knee, and then he stood with all of his guys. And if you don't like Jerry Jones, you don't like Jerry Jones. But he was trying to do something that is not only just unity with his team. I think it's the NFL responding to the president, ripping them for 3 straight days. And then people had a problem with that, man. And at some point I go, well, what is it? What is the perfect way to display whatever it is that we want to display here? Because in the beginning, it was very specific. It was Kaepernick sitting down because of the way he felt police treated black people in this country. And now, and we talked about this yesterday with Will Kane, I've kind of lost sight of what is it now? Is this just the NFL responding back to the president that was ripping them the whole time?
I think this weekend that's what it was about.
It doesn't
I think
feel like it's the Kaepernick thing anymore.
And no. At least this weekend, I think. And now I think it goes back to that with some of the still president involved. Because to your point this morning, Green, you said, is it going to end? And I thought coaches would maybe have a talk with the players today before the media comes in and say, hey, guys, let's just – the A personalities here, from the president to the players, let's just move on, and let them tweet. Let's not answer. And I don't know if players would have done that or not. But now where it's gone, you know where it's going to go, is you're going to need a statement out from the NFL. They're going to ask about that and want a statement. Joe Lockhart's going to have to put out some sort of response that is going to say we're not giving a rule that says you have to stand for the national anthem.
If they gave out a rule, even if they wanted to, it would go over so badly.
Exactly right. So then the president will tweet and say, see, they continue to disrespect, and this will continue to go on.
Yes, I think that's why I was trying to make a specific point of the wording there. The only way out for them are the words that he chose to use here. Now, those who follow him on Twitter know that sometimes he doesn't always choose his words. It doesn't appear he's choosing them all that carefully, and there are punctuation issues and all sorts of things. But that said, when he's saying the only way out for them is to set a rule, that to me is throwing down the gauntlet. He's basically looking at Goodell, and he's looking at a lot of these owners, many of whom are his friends, Kraft and Woody Johnson, who's overseas right now as the ambassador to the UK, and all these other guys, and he's saying, you make this rule or I'm not letting it go. And
right, but when he addressed the crowd in Alabama on Friday, that's a state, and I looked it up, it was this 4th most supportive state when we look back at the election. It was
right.
63% of the vote. Okay, it was only behind 3 other states. So I'm seeing a guy looking at an audience going, this material is going to slay.
Right.
Like I'm just,
these are my people.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw this out there. The SOB term was just way over the top, but I still think without that, he was going to get that kind of applause, and he still was going to get that kind of resistance because grown men don't like being told by anybody, no matter what your office is, no matter what your position of power is. Nobody likes being told what to do, especially when you feel like you're being done wrong on this whole thing. So I don't know if it's just tweet after tweet. I mean, that's kind of what it is, and I sifted through it this weekend as Greeny keeps updating us this whole time. But is it the type of thing where it goes over so well with the base that he's just going to keep doing it? Like sometimes we can get really caught up if people around us are telling us how great we're doing the entire time, and we can be off. But the people closest to us are saying, "Yeah, keep it going." Then you're going to think you're killing it.
What I haven't seen is, and we're searching it, any responses from players at this point.
Oh, I'm sure there's going to be. Yeah,
I'm sure there's going to. But. So I don't know.
It's in the last 3 hours, he has tweeted 7 times, 4 of them about the National Football League. Ryen Russillo, every single day here. Coast to coast on you. Great to see you again, my man. Good, great to have you back. Paul Feinbaum will join us coming up shortly. What?
Paul
Feinbaum.
I gave up. I used to get so annoyed with Greeny, too, on that whole thing, and then I heard Paul on with you.
Probably 18 years.
I don't know how you guys did.
Yeah, well.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Hear him every day on ESPN Radio. And, Paul, I'm working on the pronunciation of the last name. You are the bomb. You are the fine bomb. And I swear to you, I'm going to do it the best I can.
You've been very inconsistent today, I might add, Greeny. I've heard you say it 14 different ways.
And it's so easy to just say, yet you just keep butchering it. It just stuns me.
I'm sorry. I was born this way. Let me ask you one quick question on all of this other stuff. And then I want to go to the college stuff, and I want to talk about Saquon Barkley and any number of other things. But I'm just curious because you do a radio show where you take a lot of phone calls all day long, and Mike and I don't really. We haven't done that in years and years since television became such a big part of what we do. So I'm just curious, with all of this stuff, and particularly the increased attention that was placed on it this past weekend, just what are you hearing? For those in our audience that don't get a chance to hear your radio show, what are you hearing from your listeners?
Yeah, Greeny, it was interesting yesterday because nobody knew what to expect after the weekend, but for the most part, throughout 4 hours of taking phone calls, I think we had one phone call on the controversy, and it was someone from the Deep South who was attacking the attackers of the president. And this is just my opinion. I think people were looking for something else on our show. Now, listen, it was all over the place. And if you wanted to find it, all you had to do was look. And it was our conscious effort to give people a heavy dose of college football on Monday. I was not going to turn any caller away, but interestingly, and I don't know what it says, we only had one.
Why do you think it is we've seen no players do any kind of protest kneeling or sitting in the college ranks?
I think we will at some point, and I think it could be soon because Mike, the young players in college look up to their predecessors in the NFL and all other sports. So someone is going to do it, and I think it's going to happen pretty soon. But I think this weekend in particular, Saturday was over, and this really didn't start. And it was going on Saturday, of course, with the first comments. Of course, the comments came Friday, but I don't think it had reached a critical mass until later in the day, and obviously it hit its peak Sunday morning. So I have talked to several coaches. Dabo Sweeney last year had issues with it. This year, now this is 3 weeks ago when I spoke to him, he said he has had conversations with players. I know Nick Saban has done this. I know other players. Other coaches have spoken to players, but I still believe that someone is going to do it, and I think it's going to open up floodgates, and coaches in college are going to be in the exact same position that coaches in the NFL are. They are going to have to back the players, or they will risk a major problem. We've seen a little bit of this in college football. It's worth remembering 2 years ago at the University of Missouri, there was a major problem over race, not the flag, but race, and it ended up costing the chancellor, the president, the athletic director left, and ultimately Gary Pinkel resigned for health reasons, and that program, quite frankly, has not been the same since.
Mike and Mike, Paul Feinbaum. All right, let's go on the field here. And I try to play things. You know me, Paul. You know I don't try to make too big a deal of anything. I don't overreact to anything. I just kind of try and call them as I see them. So I'll make the simple statement. Saquon Barkley is the greatest football player that has ever lived. And my question is, do you agree or disagree?
That's not an exaggeration for you, Mike.
What are your thoughts?
Well, he's clearly the best right now. I'd probably like to hold on for a second and give some deep thought. I heard you ask Golic earlier about, is there someone he reminds you of? But yeah. I'm not quite ready to go that far. But I will say this. I mean, what he did the other night was spectacular. That as everyone predicted, was going to be a difficult and suffocating atmosphere, and he proved it. And it's just interesting now. This is week 5 of the college football season, and I've been on here every week, and I think we have had 4 different Heisman Trophy favorites, and he looks like he's going to hold on to it, though, for a while. But don't forget that Penn State goes to Ohio State in a month. Ohio State is the forgotten team in college football. Nobody wants to act like they're still alive, and should they be able to shut him down, which I'm not sure they can, we'll see a reset on the Heisman.
Yeah, back-to-back after their bye against Northwestern.
And after they fall from the ranks of the unbeaten in Evanston.
Did I say that?
Definitely going to happen.
They do have October 21st, then the 28th, Michigan and Ohio State back-to-back, so that will be a big test for him. Paul, let me tell you, the team that I'm really kind of keeping an eye on and looking at the rest of their schedule looks pretty favorable to them. And I asked you about this game against a Mississippi State team that just drubbed LSU. You kind of weren't bought into Mississippi State, and Georgia just smoked them. Georgia, now Jacob Eason looks like he's ready to come back. First question, do you think he comes back and plays, or from the true freshman, still going to play? And How good is this team? Is it growing, and do you think it will end up in the upper echelon here?
There's no question they will. And right now, Eason, who won the starting job, he cannot supplant Jake Fromm. Fromm is playing way too well. And Mike, I'll fall on my sword. I'll go into confessional here and admit that the win in South Bend may have been more impressive than I originally thought, so please forgive me, Father. I thought they were just beating another average Notre Dame team. Right. Notre Dame looks a little bit better, and that was a significant win just to get them over a psychological barrier, and they are now over that. But Mississippi State's a pretty good team, and they did not allow them to do anything. They shut them down from the beginning and never let them up. So if you look at Georgia, they do go to Tennessee this week, and I know everyone wants to dismiss Tennessee because they won by 4 against UMass, a team that was had not won a game and that had not even been competitive. That will be a test, and then they'll play Florida, another confusing and bewildering team at the end of October. They go to Auburn late in November. And then they'll likely get Alabama in the championship game. But I think they have a reasonable shot of getting through the regular season undefeated.
Paul Feinbaum with us, brought to you by Goodyear. Tires as hardworking as college football's most blimp-worthy athletes. Goodyear, official sponsor of the college football playoff.
So one of the big matchups this past weekend was could Oklahoma State keep going, and everybody getting ready for that big Oklahoma State-Oklahoma matchup. But TCU and Gary Patterson's defense happened to be there in the way, and now at TCU, I know Herbie picked TCU to come out. I picked Oklahoma State. A lot of people picked Oklahoma. Man, you have to look at TCU when you don't say the word defense very much in the Big 12, except for Gary Patterson and that school.
Well, he's so underrated, and part of it, Mike, has to do with last year. They had an off season for some obvious reasons, but they weren't far from the college football playoff 3 years ago. And I think now we're probably going to look past the Bedlam game until the following week when TCU goes to Oklahoma. That now becomes one of the defining games on the college football calendar. I was really surprised. I thought Mason Rudolph, I thought Oklahoma State would very likely get to the college football playoff. But that is, for the first time in a couple of years, the Big 12 is really going to be interesting. And I still think Oklahoma may be the better of the three now that the Cowboys have been knocked down. But that is to be determined.
First time skydiving? Sure is. Okay, you just open the door like this and you jump. Wait. Should we be like in tandem? Tandem? That's a great idea. Are you a certified instructor? No, but I love parachutes and I love people. Here we go.
You wouldn't take chances with an uncertified skydiving instructor. Don't do it with your finances. Find a certified financial planner professional today at letsmakeaplan.org. CFP. Work with the highest standard.